name like Heinz, I'm hardly Irish. My family migrated here in 1954, and so most of my material is German, Swiss, Austrian, but I'm going to do my best to give you a bit of a variety this evening. And to get the evening underway, we'll rip into a couple of tunes. Who wanted the cuckoo waltz? Is that the one? I don't know it. As you can tell, I love a good gag. But I don't just like the funny stories, I like the ones that have a bit of a message behind them where you sort of go, wow, yeah, that's right. Alan is a motorbike mechanic. He's got a Harley Davidson motorbike apart on the workshop floor. He looks over to the workshop manager's office, and there is a world-renowned surgeon standing there, obviously waiting to speak to the service manager about his hobby bike. So he calls the doctor over. Hey, doc, come over here. I've got a question for you. The doctor's rather surprised, but he walks over, and Alan says to him, now look at this little beauty. He said, by the time I put new valves in this, put it all together again, he said, it'd be good as new. He said, you and I do the same kind of work, you know. How come when you do your work, you make a small fortune, and when I do my work, I make a pittance? And the surgeon smiled, leaned over, put his hand on his shoulder. He said, son, he said, I do my work with the engine running. Any Irish people here tonight? There's always one. There's always more than one. There's... All right, yeah, it's the cameraman. I've got to be nice. I'll have to tell you a Greek joke then. There's these two Greek boys, Paddy and Michael. No, I'm pulling your leg. I'm pulling your leg. This really is a Greek story. Mrs. Papadopoulos visits her son Con for dinner, and Con's living with a flatmate, Vicky, and Mrs. Papadopoulos quickly realises that Vicky is a very good-looking young lady, very attractive, and while Vicky is out in the kitchen preparing the entrees, Mrs. Papadopoulos asks her son Con, are you sure she's a very attractive young lady? Are you sure you were just flatmates? And he assured her that they were. Well, about a week after Mum had been to dinner, Vicky says to Con, look, ever since your mum's been to dinner, I can't find our sugar bowl. She wouldn't have taken it, surely. He said, why should she? She's probably got 2 or 3 of her own. But another week passed and it still hadn't resolved itself, so Con decided to take the bull by the horns, and he rang Mother. And he said, Mum, ever since you've been to dinner at our place, we can't find our sugar bowl. You wouldn't have taken it, surely. And she said, no, son. She said, I certainly didn't take it. But she said, if you and Vicky were really only flatmates and she was sleeping in her own bed, she would have found the sugar bowl by now. Don't you hate that? I had a mum like that. I had a mum like that. You could never keep any secrets from my mum, I'll tell you. No, if you have a request, write it on a $50 note and give it to the drummer. While we're talking about requests, Larry and I play in a German restaurant in the CBD. I want you to think about this. What do you think is the most... what's the thing that we get asked for the most, do you think? That's a good choice, but it's not Edelweiss, no. Do you realise that Edelweiss was written by an American Jew for a Broadway musical? It has absolutely nothing to do with Austria. It's true. It's true. But Edelweiss is a good choice. Any other? Sorry? No, that's high on the list, unfortunately, for a musician. Yeah, you couldn't afford it tonight, that's for sure. That's high on the list, but that's not the one either. Anything else that you think we get asked for? Yes? Sorry? Wooden Heart, that's another good choice, but no. I want you to think about it. Oh, that's a very close second after the chicken dance, I'll tell you.
One more is going home.
No. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that, all right? Do a little song from a movie. It's 10 minutes before midnight, high up in the Alps on the border between Germany and Austria. And the two German, border patrol men on their skis. It's blizzard conditions. There is Reinhard and Werner. And Werner says to Reinhard, he says, look, it's cold, it's really cold. Reinhard says to Werner, he said, look, he said, another 10 minutes, he said, we knock off. He said, we ski down into the village, we have a couple of glühweins, we'll be all cosy and warm in bed before 1 a.m. All of a sudden, they look in front of them, there's this corpse in the snow. Reinhard says to Werner, he says, God, he said, by the time we get this guy down the mountain, by the time we do all the paperwork, write all the reports, right? He said, we won't get to bed before 5 o'clock in the morning. Werner says to Reinhard, he said, I've got an idea. He said, you grab the arms, I grab the legs. He said, we'll chuck him across the border to the stupid Austrians. So they did that. Grabbed the arms, grabbed the legs, ruckzuck over the border. 3 minutes later, the Austrian border police, Karl and Johann, and Karl says to Johann, will you look at that? Here he is again.